What do you see? Everyone's worldview is speckled with bias. Our experiences, our feelings, our choices all taint the way we see things. We are the Columbus Church of Christ, a family striving to see the world as Jesus did. But we're biased. So we sat down to talk about our lives and perspectives, that we may fix our eyes on Jesus and discover the beautiful, diverse specks in our eyes.
James Rhodes, been with the church, disciple 23 years, 5 kids, and let's see, 4 boys, and 1 young lady.
I'm Brody Snell. I am 29 years old. I am a campus minister, married, have 1 son, been a disciple for 11 years, and just excited to learn from these folks here today and to offer any things that I've learned trying to research these topics.
I am Elizabeth Brown-Remy. I'm a teacher for Columbus City Schools. I have 3 children. I am married, and these topics are really important to me because most of my students are Black and Brown children.
My name is Tara Adi. I am 49 years old. I am 20 years in the Lord. I have 1 little girl who's 9 years old, who's navigating the world. So this is very important to me because she has to live in this world. And I am currently an assistant principal in Columbus City Schools.
I'm Sherry Ettinger, and I'll be 50 in like a week. And I have 2 adult children, and I've been in the church here for 22 years. And this is a topic that's important to me because it's important to my friends and family.
My name is Olivia. I'm a student at OSU. I'm 20 years old and 6 years old as a disciple. I'm very, very interested in learning more about this topic, definitely on having the experience that I do on a campus.
I understand the difference between racial bias and racial injustice.
I think I have an interesting perspective with some of the courses I've been able to take, and we've sort of broken down from a sociologist sort of perspective different terms that people can use. So I think racial bias in the sort of scholastic understanding is on an individual level, individual experiences, individual perspectives, and the racial injustice can be systemic. It can be experienced in the institutions of a country, in the infrastructure of a country.
A bias is just something that you have against an individual. It's just a one-person thing. Right? And injustice is when the situation impacts a group of people. And in this situation, and particularly for this case, it'd be race.
Thanks for explaining it. I think in my gut, when I was trying to just guess, I was guessing that racial bias is like accidental, and then like racial injustice is more like purposeful. But it makes sense, kind of what Tara was saying, like individual versus a whole group of people.
I think racial bias sometimes can't necessarily be helped. Sometimes it's just learned or just is how you are. And racial injustice is something that we can actually put a stop to through our actions.
And now I want to be kind of clear with my meat definition. Like when I say individualized, it's usually the individual that has the bias. Yeah, it's the individual who has the bias against someone else. And it really doesn't impact anybody else. As opposed to racial injustice impacts everyone.
So like a racial bias would be like if I said I'm not attracted to white women, that would be a racial bias.
Absolutely.
Racial injustice would be more like I don't think white women should vote. I don't know.
Absolutely. Because you just
Okay.
made all the white women not be able to, but that could be something, actually, not just you. Racial injustice has to be within the system. If every time I see a Latino boy in my office, I suspend him, but I don't suspend other cultures for doing the exact same infraction. That's that's a racial injustice. Whereas if I just say, in my mind, I'm like, you know what? All Latino boys want to do is kiss. That's my personal opinion. It doesn't impact the entire group. They don't even have to ever know it.
There's some racial biases that are wrong, but are all racial biases wrong? Like if I say I'm not attracted to white women, does that matter? Like, or is it important that you have no biases according to race?
It seems like it would be an impossibility not to have any biases. We are raised with these ideas that get planted into our head, even at a very young age. And I think much of it can be unconsciously done until they're brought to our attention.
I think my question, Brody, would be along the lines of, why don't you like white women? Because that's where the bias are. That's where the bias would come in. It's not that you just don't like them, man. That's called preference. I think the bias comes in with the why. One of the examples I used with Zoe to explain bias is she's at an age where boys are gross. Well, part of her experience is because her big cousin is mean, and it's a male cousin. So she's developed a bias against boys. It doesn't ever stop her from playing with boys, but she, in her back of her mind, she says boys are mean. So she's developed a bias against boys based on the experience she had. I think an important part of racist is that it has to be somebody who has more power. You can't be racist if you don't have power, by definition, just by academic definition. The back academic definition is someone having power over someone else.
I have been accused of racism.
Being an educator, it's almost inevitable. And really what she was telling me was I was prejudiced against her. But she, as an 11-year-old, didn't know how to tell me, Miss Brown, you're being mean. You're judging me because I'm poor, because you keep telling me to go to college.
A lot of my brothers and sisters in the campus ministry are of different race than I am. And it was definitely sort of in a light setting. It wasn't an accusation. And I think as a group of friends, we can throw out these terms that have stereotypes behind them. I definitely appreciate their love to be able to say, like, you know, that's actually a little racist, the way that, you know, you're viewing this person, or the way that you're, you know, we're identifying certain things about this person and clouding over other things.
It's always hard to hear. And it's always a time where I have to reflect and I have to sit back and say, okay, this intention and perception are not the same thing. So whatever my intention was, it doesn't really matter, because if I'm being perceived as being, you know, coming across as being racist, and then that's what matters. And so I always have to take that step back and look at the situation. And then, you know, and as I've matured and grown as a teacher and as a disciple, it's become a little bit easier for me to go back and have those, you know, hard conversations with the people who have, you know, been hurt by me and have, you know, said that I was being racist.
I can't remember if someone has called me racist to my face. This sounds weird, but I am sure that I am racist. You know, it's helpful to hear your guys' experiences and like what people have said, and how, I mean, all three of you guys sound like you were humble and go, oh, okay, thanks for like bringing that up. And I hope that if it gets said to me, I'm not defensive, but more like in a place where like, okay, how can I learn? How can I be different? And not just try to prove like, no, that wasn't, like you said, intention versus perception.
I have experienced racial microaggressions.
I'm going to say 90% of my staff is white. And I will many times give a directive. And instead of saying, I'm not going to do it, they just don't do it. They've happened at church where people have done it. Somebody actually shared with me one time, we were talking about something we were trying to put together, and they told me, you don't know what you're doing. And it was based around education. And I mean, that could be considered a macroaggression, but they were saying it in a way that wasn't really direct, and they were trying to say, you just need my help.
Like, dang, I didn't know white boy could jump. Like, if playing sports and I can jump high, there, there's an assumption that white men can't jump. And so when you make comments like, I didn't take it like in a personal way, or like, obviously white people in dancing have a lot of things, but there's been comments like that made. According to the definition, I was like, okay, I think I could share that.
My family members would make comments and just sort of make assumptions, because one, I was American, and two, I was also white. They sort of assumed that I wouldn't be able to take or eat something that was really spicy because I was too white to be able to participate in something like that in my culture. People have sort of made comments on the fact that if I can't speak Spanish, then I'm not Mexican, then I'm not able to have an identity of Latinx. And that sort of happened throughout college, where they have these generalizations and they sort of try to make an assumption about my identity, or sort of categorize my ability to identify as both Mexican and American.
For me, is I feel like, it's not expected, or you didn't have to work hard for it. That's just a small piece of what I think some of the little aggressions that come almost on they can come pretty quick. Even though I'm retired now, I still get these little jabs.
So I was thinking about what Brody said. I've probably had some of those same kinds of things said to me, but I didn't really think of it as being a microaggression. Other people speak, the things that were said to them seem to, it definitely bothered them or hurt them. I don't know that I would say that the things that were said to me were a microaggression, just because they really didn't have an impact on my heart or, the way I thought about myself.
I want to say thank you to Brody and Liz for that vulnerability, because as a Black, brown, African-American woman in society, I don't really think about how those things are microaggressions too. It's not okay. And I want to thank you for sharing that, because now I'm going to check myself.
I feel comfortable sharing my racial experience with my church family.
Well, first of all, we all should share our experiences. I tell people, hey, we moved 30 times, including this last time. But other times we had to move because of opportunities, because I couldn't get opportunities. A family being from Mississippi, and understanding how deep racism was there. We have to teach our legacy, our children, a different pathway. That's what's so great about these conversations. Listen to Tara and how she's teaching Zoe. Not just her though, even Black or white. How all of us are going to teach our children. It has gotten better this generation. It may not look like it right now, but certain things have gotten better.
It's not too hard to probably figure out after I began talking, but we do go deep down and dirty into the depths of whatever racism is, whatever it's not. It has made me so much more comfortable. I remember when George Floyd died and was murdered, and one sister did reach out to me, and I honestly just said, I'm okay. I didn't feel comfortable enough to give her the deep down and dirty. I do have some sisters who I'm very close to, who are white. And I did share with them, but I didn't share with everyone. But since we've been in our family group, to be honest, the white women in our family group have made me so comfortable, because they've shared what's on their heart, and they've allowed for me to share what's in my heart. It's been like something like amazing, because then the same sister texts me again when with Breonna Taylor, and every time something came out, she's actually texted me since then. And I've been open and honest with her. She was like, I so appreciate that. But I think it changed because of our family group, because of the white brother and sister. Because I'm going to be honest, I didn't think anybody really cared. Women and men in our group have shared that they need for us to talk. They can't talk. They can't work on something that they have never experienced themselves.
I think it's great that everybody feels comfortable sharing. But man, I feel like somehow I want to know more. I think I need to just take it on more to be able to learn, ask questions about people's experiences, and not be more so like I don't know, neutral, and like just hope that somehow we get into a conversation like that, but maybe try more to engage.
Learning about other people's experiences has helped me understand, this might sound really silly, but that I have a racial identity. I mean, I understood that, you know, people have biases and there's prejudice and all that, but like, I did not see that myself as a white woman had a role in the bigger picture. My friends in the church, you know, my students and their families, being open with me, that has helped me to grow and learn and be comfortable then with realizing that I have an identity, a racial identity, and talking about it.
I'll echo on what Liz says because I totally agree with it. I gladly share any of my experiences of anything in my life with people. I don't have a lot that I can think of when it comes to racism, but I truly value when I hear all your guys' experiences. And as a church, we should definitely be a safe space where everybody can feel comfortable for sharing and not being judged or thinking harshly of anything.
Yeah, the structure of campus ministry and just college culture in general, you know, opens up these environments for, you know, conversations to happen. And there's just sort of this hunger to understand other people's experiences and understand that there's so many different experiences that it makes you just comfortable and understand that yours still matters, and everyone's matters.
Race is an important part of my identity and discipleship.
Especially freshman year, I think I was very, very loud about my racial identity and specifically my Mexican identity. It almost got to the point where I was embarrassed to be white. I was a little ashamed to be half white, and I think that can be a little not productive because it's a very emotional thing. We're all before the cross, like we're all equal. Yeah, I think that it's still a big part of my discipleship and my identity, but I think it's a little bit more balanced out.
I think there needs to be a perspective and a viewpoint of all different races as part of leadership, as part of understanding a perspective of where someone may have came from. When you're young, you're giving, everything's been given to you. Now you have to change and understand that, hey, no, you have everything through Christ. Being a African-American at IBM, my goal was to become the first Black CIO at IBM. As a disciple, I wanted to be an example of how you could be a great African-American or Black, disciple and still have those other goals. But the number one goal we should have is been a disciple, and making other disciples. We shouldn't have to look at it as, hey, I'm this race and I'm a disciple. Is that, hey, I'm just one. I'm just a disciple. Just understand that you are a disciple first.
Going back on what I had mentioned before about sort of coming to terms with my own racial identity and realizing that I had one as a white woman, I think the church and my relationships with other disciples has actually helped me realize that. I have a role to play as a white woman, as a listener, to be there as support when I can be, as somebody who might look different than the person who I'm trying to give the support to.
I was told I was too loud, I was too animated, I was too this, too that. Fast forward about 7 years when I moved to Columbus Global Academy. I began to meet children from Senegal, from Ghana, from all of the West African countries. And I'm like, wait a minute, I act like them. And the kids actually pulled me to the side and actually told me they felt like I was like an auntie. Outside of school, outside of church, I was one person. And inside of church, I was another person. I assimilated to what our culture was, and our culture is predominantly a white mainstream culture. A brother came to me and said, I love that you're really trying to be a great disciple, but I'm going to tell you something somebody told me. He said, people will see you and they're going to see you a Black woman. They're not going to know you're a disciple till you open your mouth. I could be okay with being a Black woman disciple if people were going to judge me, they were going to judge me from sight. So anything I did beyond that was on them.
I didn't think being white affected my discipleship, but I feel like now with everything that's gone down this year, the whole like white privilege thing, I don't take that as a knock. I know a lot of people, white people, get mad when they hear the word white privilege. If anything, to me it's like more power comes more responsibility. Okay, you have privilege, but what are you going to do with it? So I think discipleship wise, I realize I have a responsibility being white to protect black brothers and sisters, to like help there be justice, equality. Identity wise, I don't know, maybe I'm kind of like Liv. Sometimes I'm like, I don't really like being white. It feels like boring. There's nothing like interesting.
Unless I apply for a job and have to check a white box or something, I don't really think about it. And I appreciate you, Tara and James, for sharing. For me personally, I mean, like I said, I don't go around thinking of my race, but I don't go around thinking of all your races either. You're who you are because of who you are, and that's why I like you. Now, when people talk about racial issues, then I might pay attention to it more, or maybe in a bigger sense with a bunch of people, I might notice it. But usually individually, it's just who you are and as a person, and I really don't think about race things.
I feel comfortable acknowledging my privilege.
Privilege is a good thing. I don't know why it's got twisted. When your parents take away your privileges, you're mad. No TV privileges, right? If someone says you have white privilege, I'm like, okay, but to me, it's more about what do you do with it? Do you use it selfishly for your own benefit, your own gain for a cushy life? Or do you use it to help others, to treat, literally the greatest commandment, treat your neighbor as you would yourself? Like, to me, that's the more important aspect about it. But I feel very comfortable acknowledging and accepting that I do have privilege as a white male.
I'm comfortable with that. I mean, it's okay. It's part of who I am. It's part of me understanding and realizing my racial identity as a white woman. And, I liked that you mentioned that you have privilege as a man too. I want to be able to use my privilege for good. That is my goal. And when people say that there isn't any privilege, my next question is, would you trade places with somebody? Would you trade your skin with somebody who, is an African American?
I never heard the term white privilege until recently. One thing I've learned is because I am white, I don't know the struggle. I don't know racism. I don't know what it feels like. I don't experience it when I go shopping, when I'm driving in the car, when I'm walking down the street.
Where much is given, much is expected. I think about being a male, how privileged we are. I'm a black male, 5 kids, married, 29 years. My wife and I have been together 32 years. To me, that's even a privilege of its own to be able to tell someone, hey, here is something that God has given. I can see maybe easily how we can see it as being somewhat negative, especially as I said before, a black man being tough, but we do have some privileges and responsibilities. Have I always been this way? No. But at this point in my life, I am, and will continue to fight for that until the end.
I think there's a lot of degrees of privilege, and I think my education has sort of showed me that like economic privilege is a huge part. Yeah, just the ability to, turn on my laptop, the ability to go, grocery shopping when I need to and have enough money to do that, and just take care of myself. And I think that sort of correlates and connects for sure with like racial privilege and just my experience. The place I lived in Cincinnati, Mason, was definitely this bubble of economic privilege. There was a lot of people who were very comfortable. Yeah, you were able to sort of ignore the struggles of people outside of this bubble. And I think that in itself was a privilege. Coming to college has sort of made me understand the privileges that I have, especially what Brady was saying, how to carry these privileges as disciples even, and do that to glorify God.
Thank you all for sharing. I know that there are some privileges we have, but a lot of times as a female and a person who is a minority, I feel like a lot of times my privileges are stripped away from me. I'm a double minority. So as James was talking about earlier, I actually meet 2 quotas when they want to hire me. And I have a bunch of degrees. It's ridiculous. My cousins tease me. They're like, stop getting degrees. But a lot of my privileges get taken away from me very easily just because of the nature of being a double minority.
I think that there have been some times, especially more recently, where I've actually kind of been embarrassed of my privilege, and it's kind of aggravated. Like it aggravated me, or it made me feel ashamed to be who I am. Just in certain situations where, you know, maybe I was with some friends and the way I was treated versus the way they were treated. But then it does go back to, you know, how are we going to use that?
I consistently make anti-racist efforts.
Just hear me, Sherry. So especially of late, I've been trying to be very conscious of things I say, things I do, just through this education process of learning about, you know, anti-racism. I think that no matter what, I can't escape racism because we live in a systemically racist society. I feel like I must work on that all the time. When I do something wrong, or I hurt somebody, I want that to be brought to my attention so that I can continue to work on that. It goes back to being a disciple, and, you know, I mean, God accepted me with all of, you know, these, my issues. And, you know, I hope that when I mess up, people will still just be accepting of me and tell me, and, you know, I can work on that.
I think with the focus that we have in society on racism, then I really tried to work on my anti-racist efforts, just trying to increase my knowledge about what does it mean to be racist, to be anti-racist. When our church first did a prayer thing, I mean, I knew the reason why we were going to do it, but I'm like, but I don't see what the big deal is. I mean, because this stuff happens all the time. So why is this so special now? And, you know, talking about, you know, as a body, we're a whole. And when part of our group is in pain and hurts, then the rest of us should feel that as well. Becoming aware of the whole biblical reason behind why I should care and how it should affect me changed my heart and changed my perspective. My friends, they're hurting, they're angry, they're sad, and it really did affect me. It's different for me to actually now have this compassion and feel what other people are feeling.
Have I been anti-racist in moments? For sure, but the word consistently definitely made me want to turn it off. And then also, sure, like I've read books, I've tried to inform myself, I've had conversations with people, but to be anti-racist, you're literally trying to change systems, you're trying to oppose things of that nature. And so I think with shame, I haven't gone after doing those things. I think it feels a lot more comfortable to like just, hey, Brody, you try not to be racist, but it's a different thing when you try to go tackle it for other people. So more power to you guys, Liz and Sherry.
Honestly, I think it's a hard task to pick up, as you stated, Brody. Liz and I are super duper close. And I've watched her lose family. And on the other hand, though, I've watched Sherry, because we've gotten really close lately, her gain her children from developing these anti-racist attitudes and behaviors. But it's still hard to educate. You get tired. And then if you're a conflict avoider, and I can be one sometimes, and I'm not always one, but sometimes I can be, you don't want to deal with that.
It's not something that is in the forefront of my mind. I mean, it could be something that is inherently built in me, where my parents never taught us to be racist, or in a sense, they really told us to educate ourselves in every aspect. You know, I think it's to speak against hate, and I think that's just something that it's just in me. I still struggle with the term that African Americans cannot be racist. It has to be somebody in power. When my college roommates would say the exact same wording, except for it's coming from, you know, someone that's black now instead of someone that's white. And that's when I think Jay told me, no, they have a prejudice. They're not racist. So for me, I try to fight against, no matter what color skin you are, to make sure that, you know, they have these efforts of anti-racism.
The consistent part is when you hear the really subtle racist comments, or when you hear, you know, different things in conversations, it's calling that out. I feel like there's a lot of leadership in the church right now. I mean, James, Tara, the Bakers, I feel like you guys have held this weight of educating. Yeah, it's evident to me that my brothers and sisters are in the body that they're in, because they are able to have the patience to educate, and they're able to, you know, live in love and live with perseverance. You know, efforts and being consistent with that, I think, is definitely hard. But I think I honestly go back to discipleship, right? We're supposed to be standing up for justice, and I think we're always going to fail. We're not going to be perfect, but yeah.
Guys, wave goodbye as I stop recording.